Being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. Then when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. That will be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. It is another edition of Football University with me, Matt Caddell, former Alabama wide receiver. Roll Tide Roll to all the Bama fans in the student section. This is what we do here at Football University, where we talk anything and everything football. And yes, we find a way to bring it back to Alabama. So RTR to all the Bama fans out there. Crazy sports weekend. We had the Kentucky Derby. We got baseball. I'm going to talk about Ty Simpson. I'm going to talk about Alabama secondary. We got a very exciting show lined up for tonight. So get ready to start it off. But first, I got a good friend of mine that is going to jump on real quick. The founder, the CTS founder, Mr. Joseph Joey Lazada. Joey, how are you, my brother?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Roll Tide, baby. I just spent the weekend in Georgia. I need to hear a lot of Roll Tides. Now, before I get started, last week, a lot of people were upset. One more thing. I got that T-Maybe service. You know what a T-Maybe service is, right? They call it T-Mobile, but it's actually T-Maybe. Because you maybe get service and you may not. So if you can't hear me, if I break up, I apologize. However, a lot of fans were a little upset at what I said last week, but I was keeping it real. But before we get to that,
yes.
Last week, this past weekend, I was on the east side of Georgia, small towns. And I got a question to everybody on line right now. And I'm talking to you, Fort Payne, Alabama. I'm talking to you, Andalusia, Alabama. I'm talking to you. Warrior, Alabama. Not just Georgia, all the small towns in the South. Why is it you go to these small towns and you see this tobacco chewing fat dude who's wearing overalls, and he goes into a restaurant with a woman who looks like a supermodel? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking maybe he has money. No, he's driving a 1978 Chevy pickup truck. He's ugly as hell, but he's got a nice looking wife. I don't know how y'all do it. And then All of a sudden, you see this big buff Brock Lesnar looking construction working guy. I'm trying not to cuss.
Okay.
And he comes in with this fat chick. I don't know how these guys are doing it. Now, I know what y'all thinking. You're like, Joey, you're like a hard 7 or a hard 8. If you go to these small towns, that means you got to date a fat chick. No, not true.
7,
I got standards. But with that said, I was in the east side of Georgia. Back what I was saying. These keyboard warriors, you're a minority. Let me paint a picture. Jessup, Georgia. Hamlin, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I was all over that portion of Georgia. I come in with my Alabama hat on.
Joey, your signal.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hamlin, Georgia. Jessup, Georgia. Come in with my Alabama hat on. Guess what they say?
What?
I'm a
Go
Georgia
Dogs?
fan. I'm a Georgia fan, but I just want to say Roll Tide.
Oh, you met some good Georgia fans. Let's go.
I go into a restaurant. Guess what they say? Matter of fact, Sunday night, ran into a restaurant.
Yeah.
Guess what they said?
What
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Okay.
Okay. I'm a Dogs fan. I'm a Bulldogs fan. I'm
Yeah.
sorry about 2 years ago when we beat you, ha ha. But it was a good game, wasn't it? I love what Nick Saban's done with the program. See, it's back what I said last week. Georgia fans have a little bit of class, but you got these keyboard warriors who live at home with their mama. You know, they're 45, living in the basement, yelling at mama, talking about, Mom, where's the Hot Pockets? Mama don't got no Hot Pockets.
Lasagna, Mom, the lasagna.
Yeah, where's the lasagna? Mom, I'm waiting. I'm hungry. You're 45 and you're a virgin. Get out of your mom's house. With that said, it goes like this. You're not Auburn fans. So the keyboard warriors right now who are not enjoying the 2 national championships, well, the 3 national championships that you have on your school record, if you're not enjoying it right now, stop complaining and start enjoying. Because just like Alabama, our time is going to come when we're going to be unranked. It's going to come a time with, look at Miami. Miami was a powerhouse. Alabama, a powerhouse. Florida, a powerhouse. Luck is going to run out in college football. So enjoy the moment that you're having now. Stop getting on YouTube and Facebook and social media talking about, I hate Nick Saban, blah, blah, blah. Be proud that Nick Saban's in the SEC and he's part of college football. And with that said, one more thing, Matt.
Yes.
Have I ever thanked you for that catch in 2007 against Arkansas? With that said, the Joester, he's out.
All right. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it. You heard it from Joey Lozada, the CTS founder. Hey, he said he ran into some good dog fans. Listen, that is so cool. We know the Georgia-Alabama rivalry. Listen, we're going to kind of continue to hold on to that. We got some exciting things coming down the line from the Georgia perspective. So we're going to keep it on it. So shouts out to the student section. Y'all are rolling. And so I mentioned early, you know, Joey talked about, you know, Coach Saban, and we need to enjoy this moment. We need to continue to enjoy it. And like Joey mentioned, having Coach Saban, we don't want to be one of those powerhouses that kind of die down. You know, Alabama is one of those powerhouses that's kind of been historically, perennially successful. I think Alabama has won a championship each decade. You look at Gene Stallings in the 92 team. So we can still continue it, but we're going to enjoy the moment right now and enjoy Alabama football. Let's get to the student section. We're going to start with 6-0. He says, Matt, Alabama is 6 on the college top 25. What is your take on that? And does Alabama need DBs of the portal? So let me take my take on Alabama being 6 in the top 25. You know how I feel about it? I love it. I love it when Alabama is ranked 6th, 5th. Nobody's thinking about Alabama, but in the back of their mind, they know the tide is ready to roll. And I love it when Alabama's not number 1. I want Alabama to be ranked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all throughout the regular season. Even we're undefeated. Don't give us that number one title because we want to finish number one at the top of the mountain. It's not about during the season being number one. At Alabama, it's about winning championships, having that legacy, that Bear Bryant, Gene Stallings, Coach Saban, that championship mentality. We want to finish number one. So right now, I am glad we are number 6. Keep doubting us all year. And to answer the second part of the question, what is your take on that? And what do Alabama need to get in DBs in the portal? I believe we did lose 2022 guy Fagans. He committed to USC. I have heard some rumblings of some portal guys. I think you look at Coach Saban, how he is, how he likes to have depth, not only depth, but quality depth. We discussed it last week at Football University because that's what we do, talk anything and everything football. But we looked at the depth, look at Coach Saban's checklist. He's got his defense. He really wants to have quality depth in the SEC. A guy that can come in, be a great special teams player. I think he has to be a great fit for Alabama. You look at a Jamison Williams, you look at a Jahmyr Gibbs, ultra talented guys, but they were able to be great fits and buy into the system. And I think Coach Saban is going to do a lot of vetting. I think he's down to maybe 2 portal guys, a guy DB from Louisiana and a DB transfer from UAB. So I think we should have some type of decision on that in the portal. So great point, 6-0 to get us started. Let's stay in the student section. Y'all are ripping and rolling. Let's see. It is about Hicks says it's not about UGA or anybody else. This is about Alabama winning national championship. And one thing, let's park right there. Joey talked about enjoying it. Listen, historically, the University of Alabama has been winning championships. I feel like they're the premier program in the South, in the Southeastern Conference. So, Alabama, like I said, it's not about us being ranked number 6. I say rank us number 12, rank us number 35. That just gives us more motivation, more fuel for Coach Saban to chew everybody out, make sure his coordinators are on it, and make sure we finish number 1 because it's been 2 years since we've won a championship. And in those 2 years, we mentioned the Georgia program, we mentioned their emergence, Kirby Smart, Stetson Bennett. They were able to capitalize and win championships. They didn't have to play Alabama last year, so that played in, but kudos to them. You got to give respect where respect is due. They won the national championship, and I feel like thanks to David Pollock, he has lit a fire into Coach Saban. So, man, let's go. Cindy Reed has a great comment right here. Y'all are rolling in this section. She says, ranking us 6 is more rap poetry for Coach Saban to put on the bulletin board. Yeah, I think, the way Coach Saban is, he comes from that. He's such a more of a strategic, mental type of philosopher. Whenever he's talking to the media, a lot of times he's talking to his players of what message he wants to get across to the player, what type of attitude he has towards the week. So yeah, he is an ultra motivator. So like you said, he's going to use that rat poison, that fuel. I believe, like I mentioned earlier, David Pollock, all those things, people ranking Alabama 6, it just adds to hopefully Alabama getting the job done and being able to finish with a national championship. Y'all are rolling. Let's stay in here. William Brown says, Feinbaum talking mess. What? Well, you know how Feinbaum is. This is my 2 cents on Paul Feinbaum. He's the voice of the South, the mouth of the South. He's been, started in Birmingham and, it's been very storied, documented. But at the end of the day, a lot of fans say, oh, he's the Bama guy, Homer. At the end of the day, Paul Feinbaum is an alum of the University of Tennessee. So he isn't a volunteer. And I feel like Paul is even more confident, more against Alabama now that Tennessee has finally beat Alabama. The momentum Tennessee has had with Josh Heupel, Rocky Top, the fireworks, Dixieland Delight. I mean, them rushing the field, beating Alabama. I think that just propelled Feinbaum to really, be a little bit more boastful, a little bit more braggadocious, and showing his true orange colors. So that's my take on Feinbaum. But thanks for all he does for the game. So listen, let's pause right there and let's get to my. Let's do one more comment. Uh, make sure everyone sees that the Nen Saban is holding that trophy. You know that's what Saban wants, and we're gonna discuss it. Since we want Saban to hold that trophy up, I want to talk about the quarterback position, and we know we got the addition of Tyler Buckner or Buchner. You have Jalen Milroe, and I mentioned Jalen Milroe, the things he needs to work on, his mechanics, holding the ball, gripping the ball. I think he needs to get more reps. And if I sound like a broken record, I'm going to sound like a broken record today because I'm going to shift gears and talk about Ty Simpson. I want to set this up as about Ty Simpson, as in who I think Ty Simpson should mimic his game to really help really take this quarterback race or really help benefit him as a quarterback. And if he's the guy, he wins the job. This is my wish list for Ty Simpson. And I will start with my first comparison when it comes to Ty Simpson. And I'm going to start right here. I think Ty Simpson needs to be more like Joe Burrow was in LSU. And I want to draw the parallels. You look at Joe Burrow, how he was a quarterback. He was athletic enough. They have that similar comparison. I think both quarterbacks are athletic. You look at Joe Burrow, you look at Ty Simpson. But if I had a wish list for Ty Simpson, I would want Ty Simpson to go back and watch Joe Burrow at LSU and kind of mimic his game sort of like that. Because one thing I love about Joe Burrow, he was athletic enough and he was able to make the right football plays when it needed to be. And I think with the talent comparison with Ty Simpson, if he could be more like a Joe Burrow, I think that could be really beneficial for us, for Ty Simpson, him being a quarterback. And another way I want him to be like Joe Burrow. You look at Joe Burrow, you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, you look at the Tigers, Ed Ogeron down there in Death Valley, Joe Burrow. I mean, the guy transferred from Ohio State, and once Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator, he flourished. And I think one thing that I want Ty Simpson, that he can kind of look at Joe Burrow and kind of mimic his game after. Another point, he can take the athletic part, the processing part, making the right play. But another thing level Ty Simpson, which I hope, this is my wish list, football university wish list for Ty Simpson, that he can learn from Joe Burrow is he needs to find a receiver. He needs to find his Jamar Chase. You look at Joe Burrow, you look at Jamar Chase, even when he had Justin Jefferson, but even more so with Jamar Chase, that rapport, that chemistry, it seems like whenever he needs a play, he knows when to go to Jamar Chase. Whenever he needs to win on a route, he knows when to throw to Jamar Chase, how to throw the ball accurately for Jamar Chase. They need to develop some type of chemistry. And I think if you look at Ty Simpson, you look at Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, how they have that chemistry. You look at Ty Simpson. If you look at a Malik Benson, I'll start with Malik Benson. If they can kind of build that rapport in the offseason, continue to work on their own, get as many reps up together, throwing balls, I think they can kind of have that Jamar Chase type of chemistry. So that's another thing I want Ty Simpson to do for my Joe Burrow wish list. Another thing, I mentioned the athletic comparison that you can take from Joe Burrow game. I mentioned the chemistry, having a Jamar Chase. Another thing I think he could do is make the right play. I mentioned earlier making the right play, whether that's pre-snap at the line of scrimmage or, distributing the ball accurately and making the right football play and playing with so much confidence. that nobody's going to stop you. So another area I think Ty Simpson, all young quarterbacks can do. But the subject right now is Ty Simpson, Joe Burrow, how Ty can grow, learn from Joe Burrow. Once you develop that chemistry, Ty Simpson needs to play with confidence, have that swagger like a Joe Burrow. And great point. The receivers do need to catch the ball, but it goes to my next point. I mentioned in Ty Simpson, I mentioned in Milroe. Like, I'm not going to leave Milroe out. Milroe, I mentioned earlier, I still think he needs to work on his mechanics, playing the QB position, catching the ball, gripping the ball, because not every snap is going to be perfect. You're going to see unexpected pressure. You need to be able to maintain your poise and be able to anticipate more things, be a little bit more extensive, confidence. And all this comes with reps. And I feel like it's important for all our quarterbacks, whoever it is, whether it's Buchner, whether it's Ty Simpson, whether it's Milroe, they need to get as many reps as possible, because as Roll Tide and Rise Up says, our receivers need to catch the dang ball to get chemistry. So the more chemistry, me being a former receiver, the more time you put in, the more work you put in, the better chemistry you're going to have. And I mentioned this a couple episodes coming after the 8A game. I said it's important that these quarterbacks and these receivers spend so much time on their own. I used the old adage of a gym rat, but football is not played in the gym. It is played on the field. So I said these receivers and these quarterbacks need to be kind of a field rat approach, where I say that they need to take ownership and work on their own. Listen, we're going to catch balls today at such and such. Be ready. I just need to get as many reps. We need to work on these routes, work on this route tree, building that chemistry. And then receivers need to catch the ball. And I believe receivers can work on their routes individually or collectively, and work on judgment machine, catching the ball, looking the ball in, getting back to those basics. So when it comes game time, when it comes to fall camp, they're already so far ahead, and they can really take our offense to the next level. So listen, I said Ty Simpson, I gave you the points how he needs to kind of mimic his game like a Joe Burrow, and we need to get reps. So that's my topic about Ty Simpson. Let's go back to the student section. Y'all are having an awesome time in the student section. He says, yes, Roll Tide University, Saturday Down South articles, and they have Jaden of LSU, top quarterback in the nation. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, he beat us last year. I feel like in his first year being under Brian Kelly, the great coach coming out of Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, he's been running his mouth a little bit. We're going to talk about that. But focus right now, we're going to talk about Jaden Daniels, the success he had, going to the SEC championship. But, it looks like, their offense was really simple and basic, but it was effective. And I think, the way Coach Steele, the way he schemes up our defense, physical at the point of attack, rotating a lot of guys, having a lot of SEC depth, personnel being multiple, being able to mix and match, we can cause havoc just schematically on Jaden Daniels. And I think having Tommy Rees at the OC, coming from that Brian Kelly, I know Brian Kelly thought really highly of him. He really wanted him at LSU last year to be his OC, but Tommy Rees decided to stay at LSU. But now he's in Alabama. So I'm excited for the Tide to roll. Somebody wrote Tide Rise Up said, I like Jaden Daniels. I liked him at Arizona State too. I did as well. I remember his freshman year, how effective he was beating Oregon in that game. Jaden Daniels was very talented quarterback. But like I said, I think Bama is important. Like I mentioned, the receivers, the quarterbacks. In order for this team to take a next level, we got to continue to build that chemistry off the field, without whatever the coaches, on our own, in our own time. And that's what's going to take this team to finishing number one, because at Football University, we find solutions to get the championships because that's what it's all about at Alabama. So let's stay in the student section. So I mentioned Ty Simpson and the Joe Burrow comparison, things that I feel like Ty Simpson can take from Joe Burrow's game. I mentioned Milroe, things he needs to work on, mechanics, those type things. But we mentioned Kevin Steele. We talked about Kevin Steele, D coordinator, and I think Kevin Steele, and it was making me think about, football university, how I always try to bring the NFL and kind of draw parallels as I did with Joe Burrow and Ty Simpson. But yeah, I want to talk about Kevin Steele, and I think he's going to have an effect on this Alabama defense like a Dan Quinn has an effect on the Dallas Cowboys defense. I mean, schematically, they rush the passer. They get a lot of turnovers. They're physical. They confuse a lot for the defense. And I was like, I think Kevin Steele is going to have a Dan Quinn type of effect on our Alabama defense. And I want to talk about it because that's what we do here at Football University. Listen, a lot of LSU talk. Wow, I love this quote right here by William Brown. He says, "We're coming for you, Brian Kelly." And let's park right here. We are coming for you, Brian Kelly. Like I said, Coach Saban has made the moves. I mentioned David Pollock earlier. Listen, David Pollock, we thank you. Thank you for lighting a fire in Coach Saban's you know what? We'll say that because ever since then, I feel like Saban has addressed the things that he's needed to get back to being more militant, more focused, getting back to having his, kind of demeanor, swagger about him, that quiet confidence, wanting to be dominant. I think, having the struggles the past 2 years, let's face it, having Bill O'Brien and Pete Golden, schematically, they were just missing out on the little things. But I think Coach Saban is coming. And the SEC West is always better when LSU and Alabama are like competing for the SEC West. So I feel like that always makes us so much better to really go out there and beat that LSU Tigers, as Ed Ogeron said, which is always LSU game's my favorite game. I mean, I just love that game. I always have my best games playing against LSU, especially in Death Valley. That is like my favorite place. But it's about Alabama, how Bama's going to bounce back this year. Cindy Reed said, LSU is good. Do some good stomping and some punches in the mouth. You're right. And like I said, LSU, we have the NBA playoffs. So y'all are setting me up for my next topic. Next year, Alabama, their college football is moving to the 12-team playoff. And some news broke, the playoff retweeted, they're going to have home and home, games for the 5 through 12. That's going to be interesting. So that'll be exciting next year. Can you imagine Alabama, let's say if the playoffs were last year, USC coming to Tuscaloosa for a playoff game? How crazy would that have been last year? I mean, so I'm so excited. But I mentioned the NBA playoffs, and we got the Sixers and the Knicks and the Heat and the Lakers, LeBron, AD, Steph Curry, and this NBA playoff time. And, the NBA playoffs, they go to a 7-game series. And it got me thinking, how can I bridge this to Alabama football? And, next year we're going to the 12-team playoff. But so it got me thinking. So next year, Alabama has got to start, since Saban, thank you for your point, since Saban is on a mission, I think it's important that Alabama starts to kind of get in that basketball mindset of not a 7-game series, but a 2-game series starting this year with certain teams. And I say that Alabama's got to be strategically. Yeah, we want to win the games, but especially this year, everybody's talking about LSU. You look at LSU, say we beat LSU. LSU only has 1 loss. We go to the SEC championship, play Georgia, beat Georgia, and then we go to the playoff, and say LSU goes to the playoff, like kind of how it's been in the past, having two SEC teams. Alabama's got to get, and Coach Saban, having Coach Saban's leadership, they're gotta be able to play in 2-game series, especially this year. You have to, and I say this saying we have to have the possibility of playing LSU twice this year for the national championship. So playing them in the regular season as well as in the college football playoffs. So that's a possible 2-game series. Maybe we don't know how great Georgia is going to be. What if they're one of the teams? What if it's 3 teams, SEC teams in the college playoff? But we kind of have to start getting in our mind this year, playing multiple SEC teams to get to the national championship, especially leading up next year, going to the 12-team playoff. Listen, we could be playing, it could be 3-game series. We could play LSU 2 or 3 times, before, my having to play them for the 3rd time for the national championship. So I think I was looking at the Alabama playoffs. I said, Alabama's got to kind of get in the mindset of being able to be strategic, and being able to win games and still be able to, being able to keep it fresh and keep it new, playing teams, making those adjustments like they do in the NBA playoffs to win a 3-game series or 2-game series versus LSU to win a national championship. So that's what I want to talk to here about Football University. I find a way to bring sports to Football University and find a way to bring it back to Alabama. So let's stay in the student section before I go to my next topic. Yes, Saban is on a mission to hear what is being said and making moves to counter. Like, he is making moves. And now, like I said last week, if you tuned in, I said that I think Coach Saban is not wasting any time by having poor quarterback play to win a national championship. I mean, you look, he's got his coordinators, he's got his defense, he's physical up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. He has SEC depth. He's got his running backs, and he's got playmakers on the outside. He's got tight ends. He's got a coordinator. So he's got his kicker and Kyle Riker. And then Saban is not wasting his time having poor quarterback play. And I think the move having Tyler Buckner transferred, I think he just really lit a match and really upped the ante when it comes to the quarterback race. And since I mentioned the NBA playoffs and all the things that happened in the sports this weekend, let's talk about the Kentucky Derby. And I put this down, the Kentucky Derby, you have all the horses race out in Louisville, Kentucky, and mint juleps flowing and all the good stuff, all the fedora hats and all the, the unique hats and the culture and the horses. Kentucky Derby is experience. And I was like, it brought me to my next point. Alabama has horses right now. And Coach Saban is on that mission. If you look at our running back room, you look at a Jace McClellan, you look at a Roydell Williams, you look at a Jam Miller, you look at a Justice Haynes, you look at a Richard Young. That's about 5 horses right there, 5 thoroughbreds that we need to let these horses run. So if you have a thoroughbred, you have horses, we need to feed them and let them get behind this offensive line, get back to being bullied. And in the spirit of the Kentucky Derby, let these horses run. Like, let them do what they do best. Let Justice Hayes do what he does best. Like, it's going to constantly evolve. I think we take that approach, being physical up front. I think that's what's going to help our offense, because you compared to last year, I feel like Bill O'Brien did not find his so-called horse that he could run inside Jason McClellan until later in the season. We could have utilized him, especially you look at Tennessee and Knoxville, when we kind of needed to run up the middle for maybe 3 or 4 yards, milk the clock, get the ball in the middle of the field, play situational football, kick the field goal, Riker, win the game, those type of things where we lacked and end up losing the game. I think in the spirit of the Kentucky Derby, spirit of the horses, feed our horses. Let the horses run behind that big offensive line. So that's what I want to talk about here at Football University. So let's get in the student section. Stephen Hicks says, Alabama's on a revenge tour. I do think Alabama is on a revenge tour. I think these guys are hungry. Like I said, you look at the defense, you look at the mentality of the coordinators. Coach Saban's kind of got some, football guys, some guys that expect grit, toughness, a certain type of mindset mentally that thinks like Coach Saban, that wants to develop these dogs on the field. You look at a Kevin Steele, you look at a Freddie Roach developing dogs on that front line. You look at a Robert Balla developing multiple dogs at that linebacker position. Coach Holster, the edge rushers, and the secondary. I mean, you look at T-Rob, you look at Coach Saban. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, we hear some news about Pruitt. But right now, you look at the great job T-Rob, Coach Saban. Coach Saban is about breeding dogs and having these dogs go hunt, do what they do best. And he's got coaches that have that mindset, that can develop, that can motivate, that can bring some juice, that can bring some energy, that can bring a mentality of being dominant and physical. And so that's going to have Saban on the revenge tour. Yes, I predict Bama winning the West. Like I do think Alabama's going to win the West. I do think it's going to come down to Alabama LSU. Hopefully, that's always the biggest game of the year. So especially in the SEC West. So when Alabama and LSU are kind of going head to head, it just makes the SEC West. It's like the best. It just makes it's like the SEC West is back where it is, because you look at those games, those classic games, whether it's in Tuscaloosa or it's in Baton Rouge down there in Death Valley. That games mean so much. Whoever wins that game tends to go to Atlanta and tends to go to win the SEC championship. So I think Saban's on a mission. I think the guys are right. We just need to work in some areas. Receivers need to catch better balls. Quarterbacks needs to get more reps, and we can make it happen. So let's stay in the student section real quick. Got a few let's see. Alabama's got to get back to being physical, taking teams' will. Full court. We should. And one good thing that I did enjoy about the full court is watching the 8A game. I was excited to see the team hold the 4 quarters. In the fourth quarter, I feel like we've kind of liked that the past couple years. Where we get to the fourth quarter, we need to be pouring it on even more with our twos. Like now you're gonna get Milroe or whoever or Simpson, or now we're gonna really unleash Richard Young. He's gonna rush for 200 yards, just in the fourth quarter. Like we need to get back to taking people's will and being beasts, being dominant. Y'all are. Oh, nice point right here. So early college football projection has Alabama Peach Bowl, top 4 playoffs, Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Michigan. Whoever predicted these seasons needed a reality check. Thoughts? Okay, we're going to do it live right here at 6. So, and student section, give me your top 4 in prediction of the playoffs. I'm going to give you mine. I think SEC, Bama. I think Bama's going to have – I think I could easily see 2 teams in the SEC in the college football playoff. I mentioned earlier Jaden Daniels, Brian Kelly. They have a lot of talent. They have a good scheme. LSU's going to be a team to be – I got LSU, Alabama. I got 2 SEC West teams in the college football playoff. Texas, I don't know. I think Texas will be good, but – their strength of schedule outside of Alabama, they're not playing an SEC schedule as of yet. They do have Quinn Ewers coming back. They could, manage that schedule on down the road, but I don't know who their comp was going to be. I don't know if it's going to be Oklahoma. I have to break down their schedule, so I'm not sold on Texas. I think Ohio State. I don't know what they look like. I can only talk about the SEC schools. Georgia could possibly be in there. Tennessee can be a sneaky school. And South Carolina, they could be a sneaky school as well. So I can't speak on any team outside of the SEC because football university is all about the SEC and Bama. So RTR. Let's see. Jeff Stapleton has a great comment. He said Tyler there makes for Jalen and Ty better. Yeah, I do agree with that, Jeff Stapleton. To your point, I do think having Tyler Buckner in the quarterback room kind of injects it, kind of speeds it up, kind of propels the race. It is really a race. I mentioned the Kentucky Derby. It's like the gates have opened. It is on to the racing on who wants to take ownership of this quarterback competition. And I think the quarterback who, continues to develop on their game, working with the receivers in the field room, staying at the facility, being a gym rat, always getting balls up, throwing routes, building that chemistry, that rapport, understanding more of Tommy Rees' system, what he's trying to do. And, having Tyler there, it's going to push him, but I think it's going to be beneficial too, where they're going to push Tyler, but they're going to be able to maybe kind of learn from Tyler how Tommy Rees likes to run his system, the verbiage, what he's looking for, just the little intricacies of being the coach, running his offense, driving his machine, making simple reads when this coverage come up, making the great pre-snap read, distributing the ball accuracy, having poise. I think Tyler really helps Ty Simpson as well as Milroe, as well as Lonergan. You never know. Dylan Lonergan might be that guy as well. So it's going to be very interesting. But to your point, Jeff Stapleton, I do think having Tyler Buchner there is going to make Jalen and Ty better. He can't help but get better because if you want to win, cream rises to the top. So you're going to have to outplay, take advantage of every opportunity in practice, get more reps on your own. So great points right there. Let's shift back to my next topic. So I talked about Alabama. We talked about Coach Saban being on a mission, possibly playing LSU twice this year. Mentioned Kevin Steele having that Dan Quinn impact on our defense. Speaking of our defense, and I think our defense, and I want to focus on the secondary. I think our secondary has the opportunity to be the top secondary in college football, led by Kool-Aid McKinstry. I think Kool-Aid's going to be the first DB off the board. I think Kool-Aid is in his bag. He's even playing with even more confidence, working with Justin Woodall, all-in-one training on his own, taking ownership, continuing to get better and more dominant at his game. And I think you look at a Terrion Arnold, who I think Terrion Arnold needs to be our, kind of our interchangeable piece. I always like to compare him to a Eddie Jackson, somebody we can play at corner. He's so athletic. We can play corner, inside, or safety if need be. Terrion Arnold, I think those two guys have potentially to be Thorpe, push each other for the Thorpe award. But Kool-Aid McKinstry is that guy. And then you look at, I mentioned Kool-Aid, you mentioned Terrion Arnold, Earl Little in the money slot position star. He made that miraculous interception, which I thought was next level in the 8A game. Having him on the inside, I think he's going to have possibility to be, who's going to help this secondary be top secondary in the country. And you look at the two safeties. You look at a Malachi Moore. The leadership, the veteranship, I think he's now fitted in his right position, being able to kind of line the guys up, be strategic, be savvy. He can be a little bit more free. He can be kind of like an Antoine Winfield for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they had that Super Bowl run. So he has opportunity to be high with the Thorpe. And Caleb Downs, the guy out of Mill Creek, Georgia. I mean, this guy looks like Ed Reed 2.0 out there on the field. So, and I think it's important for these guys to continue to get better, build that camaraderie, have that sign language, having each other back, having that football IQ, knowing what the offense is trying to do, picking up on tendencies, picking up on splits, being very detailed, being very focused on the craft. And I think if the defense continues to do that under the leadership of Coach T. Rob, Coach Saban, this secondary will be the top secondary in the country and help Alabama get back to winning that national championship. And not only that, I think it's important that each one of these guys, you look at a Kool-Aid McKinstry, Earl Little, Terrion Arnold, Caleb Downs, Malachi Moore, I think it's important that they get turnovers. Like, I think it's important they need to get about 3 to 4 picks each. Hopefully a few of them can take them back. Pick 6. You look at the athletic ability, explosiveness of a Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold. All these guys have big play ability. Once they get the ball in their hands, they can be effective. So I think in order they have the potential to be the top secondary, but I think it's important that they at least get about 3 to 4 picks each to really have next level historic Bama secondary defense. Back to those Miami days with, I mentioned Ed Reed and Sean Taylor and all those guys. Listen, Alabama secondary has potential to be historically very good. So I wanted to mention that. So let's go back to the student section. Let's see. William Bryant, going back to the take on the playoff selection. He says Georgia, because Georgia, the playoff committee loves them. Doesn't matter if they have a cupcake schedule or not. Alabama because of our wins. Ohio State because of the commit. And who did you say? 4 is – who did you say? Let's see what William Bryant said. 4 is Michigan. He's got 4 Michigan for the same reason. So he's got Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan. You listen, I don't know anything about Ohio State. I don't know anything about Michigan. I know they were there last year. I can only see one of them. I don't know about Georgia could easily be there. You mentioned their schedule. But I feel like if they lose to like a Tennessee and because they got to go to Knoxville and they lose to Bama in the SEC championship, that possibly could knock them out of the college football playoff. That's why I think LSU. If it's two SEC teams, I'm gonna say the SEC West is gonna make a resurgence by Alabama and LSU. Those would be my 2 SEC West teams. Maybe Ohio State gets in. I don't know what they have at the quarterback position. Another team y'all are sleeping on, Clemson. Garrett Riley, the former TCU offensive coordinator, is now up there with Dabo Swinney. They could be potentially in the playoff. I mentioned South Carolina. I mentioned Tennessee. I mentioned Georgia. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I don't know. You never know with the Pac-12. You don't know what Caleb Williams is going to do, Lincoln Riley. But it'll be interesting to see. But I just want Bama there. I want Bama to finish number 1. That's all I care about. So let's stay in the student section. Great comment right here. 60 says that Coach Saban is building a solid football team, dominant for a couple years, maybe more. I think he's gotten adjusted to the high-powered offense, and he's able to see what Kirby is able to do. And I think he's going to have get back to the basics, get back to just controlling the line of scrimmage, being dominant and being explosive, where the defense don't stay on the field long. We're just wearing defenses down. They're done by the second quarter, the third quarter. and we're just pouring it on. So, like you said, Alabama and Coach Saban is building confident, a solid team. Because William Brown says, because Michigan wants 2 other conferences in there. Yeah, I mean, they might want 2 other conferences, but the strength of schedule, we know how this committee is. If Alabama and LSU are, going head to head, I think I've got them being my 2 SEC teams in the college football playoffs. So, like I said, as I mentioned earlier, the NBA playoffs, Alabama's got to get used to playing, multiple SEC teams throughout the year to get to that golden prize at the end of the season, which is that national championship, especially going into next year with the 12-team playoffs. But this year, I think we got to focus on LSU and the SEC West and know that we possibly could play them twice next year. So we talked about Ty Simpson and the team, Bama secondary, Kevin Steele, the Kentucky Derby, NBA playoffs, Joe Burrow. We covered it all here at Football University. Hit that like, subscribe button, or just tell somebody how you enjoyed the show, where you get a lot of information when it comes to football, kind of the intricacies or details when it comes to football. But yeah, spread the good news. So I wanted to talk about my my next point, and I mentioned the Alabama secondary, how I believe they have potential to be historically really great if they continue to push each other and continue to be better, build that chemistry, listen to what the coaches say, and be dominant. I want to talk about players who I think need to have a huge year, and I mentioned the defensive line. I mentioned Coach Holzer and with the edge rushers. One edge rusher I think he needs to have a big year, and it's his money year, is Dallas Turner. Yes, I said it, Dallas Turner. We know we lost a great talent in Will Anderson, who has gone to the Houston Texans. Next man up should be Dallas Turner, and I think Dallas Turner, a successful year for him, he needs to be double digits tackles for loss. He needs to be double digits sacks. I think he's athletic enough to get a few pass breakups, etc. So if he can get 12, 14 sacks this year, maybe 16 sacks plus playoffs, 18 sacks this year, and get, increase his tackle for losses, Dallas Turner could have a huge year where he could be a first rounder next year and kind of keep that legacy of Alabama having dominant edge rushers, looking at Will Anderson, and just continue to that legacy. So, yeah, I want to talk about Dallas Turner. I think he needs to have a big year this year. So, Dallas, if you're turning into Football University, go get it. Go have a big year. I mean, get 30 sacks this year if you can. Go be that dominant player. You can do it, man. Can't nobody stop you. That's what we do here at Football University. Also, I think another sleeper first rounder. I know I mentioned Kool-Aid. I believe Kool-Aid's a first rounder. I believe Dallas Turner needs to have a really huge year this year to kind of solidify his status as being that top edge rusher off the board next year's draft. I kind of mentioned this guy earlier, but I think Malik Benson has potential to kind of be a sleeper in this year's draft. At the receiver position, you look at this year's draft, the receivers, I think it was 4 receivers, they kind of started falling off the board this past year. Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, Jason Smith, Ejigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, all those guys. So in next year's draft, I think Malik Benson, if he continues to develop that rapport, working on his routes, catching the ball, looking the ball in, building that rapport with the quarterbacks, he's going to be going against the top defense, top seconds, DB and Kool-Aid, and probably the historically top secondary. I think Malik Benson has the potential to have that Jameson Williams impact that Jameson Williams had on our Alabama offense. So I know we're winding it down. So we kind of talked about everything. So I want to discuss this real quick. So we discussed Alabama fans and former players got into the top 5 wide receiver list, and it was from actual Bama wide receivers. I know I mentioned the receivers now, how they need to carry that tradition of that legacy of, being dominant, catching the ball, making the Julios, the Ridleys, the Devontaes, the Waddles, making those guys proud by not dropping the ball, catching the ball, running great routes, scoring a lot of points, making a lot of people miss. But a lot of news broke this past week, and this past weekend. I'll start with Devontae Smith. He did an interview with Darius Slay on his podcast, and Darius Slay, he asked him about the Pro Bowl, him not making the Pro Bowl, how he thought him and Waddle should have been in the Pro Bowl. But he asked him, who is your top 5 Bama receivers? And Devontae's list was really interesting. He started with he started off with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was his number 1. I get it. I see Amari Cooper. He had Amari Cooper number 1. He had Calvin Ridley number 2. He said C. Rid was just, him his freshman year was just a dog, a dominant. He had Jerry Jeudy number 3. He's saying those Florida boys at the receiver position are just, unreal. And then he said he got Julio number 4. And he said, Julio having that crazy work ethic. And he said he put himself 5. And so Devontae Smith had Coop, Ridley, Jeudy, Julio, and himself at 5. And this is coming probably from the most heralded wide receiver to come through Alabama. And so it just made me think. So it got the Twitterverse going. And so then Jalen Waddle, then Jerry Jeudy chimed in to Devontae Smith. And Jerry Jeudy said his top 5 is Smitty 1, Cooper 2, Jeudy 3, Ridley 4, Julio 5. And I'm like, wow, they are putting Julio down there. And I understand it. I get it. I still think Julio was just unreal. Just him as a receiver, how he changed the game at wide receiver. But I just wanted to talk about that. And then Jalen Waddle responded, and he said he had Smitty, Cooper, Jeudy, Ridley, and Jones. And so, listen, it just made me think about, man, Alabama has been able to enjoy some very talented at the receiver position. And I don't know how you leave Jalen Waddle off the list for me, man. To me, Jalen Waddle was so dynamic. I don't know if I can stop the list at top 5. I think I can go to 7. And I have to have Waddle in there, just his impact. But yeah, I got to mention guys like David Palmer, Freddie Millins. I mean, you look at Bama receivers, the list could go on and on. But I wanted to bring that up because that's what we do here at Football University. But I wanted to say that. So we cover all our topics: Bama top 5 receivers, Ty Simpson, Milrow, the defense, Kevin Steele, the Kentucky Derby, NBA playoffs. That's what we do here at Football University. Hit that like, subscribe button. Tell everybody. Be back here next Monday, same time, same show with me, Matt Caddell, Football University. It's for all the football heads or all the football fanatic fans that love SEC football, but especially love Alabama football. And we know we got the Georgia fans out there. You're more than welcome. But it's been another episode of Football University. Again, thank you to you all for tuning in. I hope you all have a great week. And I look forward to seeing you next week here at Football University with